Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sunny Go One Piece podcast. On this episode, we are going to be getting into episodes 465 through 467, which cover manga chapters 556 through 558. And this is the set of episodes where one of my all-time favorite quotes in the entire series is uttered, and where things start to get nuts. But let's move on to the synopsis first. The Whitebeard pirates don't let Oars Jr.'s sacrifice go to waste and use the opportunity to continue to push forward towards Ace, but the Marines have a secret strategy up their sleeve. However, just in time, Luffy makes his dramatic and crazy appearance to the war. Alright, so differences. There are a couple of them here. So in the anime, we get a much more detailed explanation as to how and why Luffy's gang came falling from the sky. So in the manga, we only get to see the flashback from the point where they are already on top of the frozen tsunami wave. But in the anime, we get everything prior, leading up to how they ended up on the wave to begin with, after experiencing that shockwave from Whitebeard's attack. And of course, in the manga, we can pretty much kind of fill in the blanks of what happened, but the anime actually does go to show us the whole event leading up to it. The second difference is the moment Luffy awakens after the fall, this moment is extended as he's kind of left looking for Ace for a while in the anime. This section probably takes about, a good 2-3 minutes. And in the manga, he just kind of wakes up and almost immediately figures out where Ace is. And yeah, I guess this is not a bad change necessarily. It's clearly meant to sort of extend and drag out time, but I can clearly understand why Luffy would be confused as to where he is. And he's kind of like looking around because, yeah, it does seem a little coincidental that he kind of just wakes up and immediately knows where Ace is. And then the third and final difference that I could find was some of the zombies that Moria raises in the manga are different. So there are a couple zombies in the manga that are more akin to the ones he had on Thriller Bark, like these sort of stitched together zombies with very unique properties to them. So in the manga, you see him raise up a bear-like marine, a four-armed centaur-like zombie marine, as well as a Frankenstein-looking one. And these were presumably changed, and I kind of talk about this later in this podcast, but I think they were changed due to the fact that it kind of makes no sense why these kind of corpses would be lying around in the Marineford battlefield. Because in order for that to happen, he probably would have had to brought these zombies in, because these are the kinds of zombies that Hogback would have had to have made for him. But these wouldn't be just regular dead corpses that would have been found laying on the battlefield from all the other people that have died. And so in the anime, it changes all the zombies to more normal looking people type zombies, and you don't see these like absurd ones like the bear or the centaur ones. Alright, so let's get into the episodes themselves. So these sets of episodes begin with the first major casualty of the war, with Oars Jr. going down. And this does not sit well with Whitebeard. One of the giant vice admirals, Lons, tries to use this opportunity of supposed distraction to attack Whitebeard. And good lord, that was a mistake. He finally gets a taste of what Whitebeard is capable of in hand-to-hand combat, as he effortlessly, and quickly I might add, stops this massive axe and shatters, and then uses a quake bubble on the dude's head. Like, the guy, if Oda wasn't writing this, would be dead, or at least suffer from massive brain damage, but he's probably still alive because, yeah, again, Oda doesn't really kill people. But the next part of the war is really used to highlight the horrors of war and battle. And most of One Piece is a pretty, fun and adventurous tone, even in its battles, when like the Straw Hats are included. They're particularly, that tone is maintained. But even during the darker and more violent moments, it still manages to keep that general atmosphere. However, Oda takes his time here to really show the ugly side of war and humanity. We first see, despite how sad Whitebeard is over Oars' supposed death, he mercilessly orders his men to use his body to climb over him to get to the plaza. And this is especially highlighted when we see the war through Kobe's eyes, as he is scared out of his mind seeing all the carnage. And then when he tries to desert, he runs into Akainu and a random soldier who is also trying to desert but gets caught. Kobe and Helmeppo witness Akainu straight up murdering this man in cold blood, melting him on the spot with a magma attack. I mean, this is brutal. And you start to see more of Akainu's sort of ruthless, absolute justice mentality and in sort of his mantra of, if you're not doing your job, you serve no purpose and don't deserve to live type of extreme attitude. And then this leads to the embodiment of chaos and malice in Doflamingo. This guy is seriously one of the most interesting characters. The more you learn about him, the more you see him. Like, you can clearly see he is pure, unhinged evil, yet you can't help but get sucked in by his charisma and aura of mystery. He's basically the Joker of One Piece, and Oda even goes so far as to make his underworld alias Joker, as we saw during the Jaya arc, as well as the Sabodi arc. And I don't just mean their visual and role similarities. Yeah, they're both flamboyantly dressed villains, but Doflamingo strikes me as a character that, as Alfred from The Dark Knight puts it, some men just want to see the world burn. And the way he seems to take pleasure in all the killing that's occurring from both sides is pretty chilling, as he just stands there smiling and gleefully laughing, not only killing, but using his powers to make people kill their own allies. And then we get to his epic quote. And this is one of those quotes in the series that has always stuck with me, as well as most of the fans. And it's not so much in terms of like fiction or anime or anything like that. This quote sticks with you and me so much because of how dark and true it is in the real world. So the quote goes, "Pirates are evil, the Marines are justice." That has been rewritten many times in the past. Values are different to kids who don't know what peace is and kids who don't have firsthand knowledge of war. The one who ends up on top will rewrite what's right and what's wrong. This place is the turning point. Justice will prevail? Of course it will, because the winners claim justice. And this quote has essentially kind of haunted me ever since I heard it. And the older I get, the more cynically true it is. And I don't mean just in the fictional world of the story. Like, we can clearly tell from a story perspective, this is referring to the world government and the celestial dragons wiping away and censoring history with the Void Century, as well as Ohara and any mention of the Ancient Kingdom, just so they can erase the atrocities that the original 20 kingdoms had committed to gain and maintain their current power. So yeah, they are justice because they make the rules as the victor of that 800-year-old struggle. However, this definitely can be seen all too often in the real world, all over the world, in both developed and undeveloped countries. The people in the winners and those in power make the rules and get to decide what's right and what's wrong. It doesn't matter what is inherently right or wrong. If the people in power make laws that say something is right when it's categorically wrong, or vice versa, outlaw something that should be good, then that is how the world is. And the really sad thing is that as absurd as the world government in One Piece is, the foundations of how it operates is honestly not too dissimilar to how governments all around the world operate currently in the real world. Governments and those in power will work to rewrite or omit history that makes them look bad, and use propaganda to basically make them look better than they really are. Just like in the US's own history, or hell, even today you can see stuff like this happening. And that is precisely why this quote has been so poignant to me and so many other people. Of course, then that begs the question, what does One Piece and Oda, by extension, want to or have to say about this? What lesson and message can we take away from this? Of course, since the story isn't finished, it's hard to 100% nail down what Oda's ultimate commentary on this will be. And, this could this be that he's just pointing this fact out, that always might makes right type of attitude, and why it's so important that the forces of good have to win in order for good to actually prevail. I don't think Oda is necessarily making this point to tell us a solution so much, more so that he wants to point out that justice is in the eye of the beholder, particularly that part where he talks about the differing viewpoints kids hold based on their own experiences. Someone who's known only peace their entire life will have a very different view of the world and what justice means compared to someone who's only known war all their entire life. It's more of a commentary on the idea of absolute justice that the Marines and the embodiment of that philosophy Akainu particularly holds. And I believe it's saying that absolute justice is a very flawed philosophy when it comes to governing. Nothing is completely black and white, as pirates are evil, Marines are good. We've seen time and time again throughout the entire series how that is definitely not the case, and that a more nuanced look needs to be taken. And we can also see that in the real world as well. Doflamingo, for his part, the true agent of chaos, doesn't even seem to believe that justice is inherently is even a real thing, and that whoever wins gets to decide what justice is. I think me personally, while I do think this is true, I think there is hope as well, though. Like, no matter how much people try to erase or rewrite history, we see that there are many brave and hardworking people working to preserve history and to tell people's real stories, and not, to let revisionist history win, just like how Robin and the scholars of Ohara were doing. I think it's important to own up to mistakes and learn from them. Otherwise, that old adage that says, those who don't learn from their past are doomed to repeat it. It's not about retribution or punishing those who have done wrong in the name of their own justice, but to recognize that what was done was wrong and we need to evolve and be better from it. And I do recognize that the moral, ethical, and philosophical discussion of who gets to decide what is right is a very dense one that I certainly am not qualified to really go into, nor do we have that much time to get into here. And yeah, because I've already taken up a good chunk of this episode just talking about this one quote. So we'll kind of move on. But yeah, this is a very interesting quote that can be dissected for a very long time because it goes in so many different directions. You could talk about it from so many different contexts, from what it means to what it actually is in practice, as well as just more moral, ethical, and philosophical sides of things, like what is right and wrong, what is justice, and who gets to decide all of that. It's a very, very, very dense topic. But anyways, let's move on back to more of the story. But anyways, we go from absolute chaos to an incredibly sober but heartfelt moment as Garp moves up to the platform to be with his grandson. And you can tell that despite how aloof Garp is most of the time, he still truly cares for his family, and it really hurts to see Garp struggling this much. Just in this short scene, we learn so much about his relationship and his character. From him just desperately anguished that his two grandkids just didn't follow his wishes and become a Marine, or the fact that he just straight up yells at his superior, the head of the Marines, to shut up, and Sengoku doesn't even get offended or angry. It just kind of goes to show that the relationship he has with Sengoku is a very close one. He understands how hard it is for Garp right now to just sit by and watch a kid that he's watched over since he was a baby about to be executed. But then we go from that heartfelt moment and to a crazy moment, just like in great Oda fashion. And we get the long-awaited arrival of Luffy. And in the most awesome and absurd way, too, as they fall from the sky. Now, this was spoiled in the Kazuo Sagashite opening, as they literally recycle the same animation. But I have to imagine that for an anime-only watcher, they may have figured that was a shortened, stylized way of showing all the characters arriving at Marineford, and it probably wouldn't happen this way in the actual anime. But this ridiculous way they drop in from like 1,000 feet in the air is exactly how it happens. And watching everyone, even Ivankov, collectively freak out, they're all gonna die, apart from Crocodile and Daz bonus, is hilarious. Yet also, it's chills-inducing with Luffy's trademark arrival music playing over this moment. We're then treated to a quick flashback as to why and how they're falling from the sky, when the last time we saw them, they were on the ocean. Normally, in a moment like this, I'd be like, forget that. I want to see the action and everyone's reaction to seeing all these big names just randomly show up. But at this moment, I was genuinely curious as to, like, what the hell happened to cause this outcome. And the explanation did not disappoint one bit. Again, that well of the Buggy and Galdino comedy does not dry up or disappoint. When Luffy reveals his plan to break the ice and slide down the backside, Buggy is vehemently against this insane plan, but Luffy confidently states that if they all work together, they can do it. And Buggy's immediately swayed by Luffy's confidence and charisma, mentioning that maybe they can do it, leading to Galdino's hilarious shock reaction. Huh? And I freaking love this pairing so much. It never gets old. And then we get even more hilarity as they intercept the new plans by the Marines to immediately execute Ace. And the five big guys all leap in the air to smash the ice in their haste. They break the wrong side, and instead of sliding back, they just fall straight down. But that's necessarily the funniest part. If you look carefully at the five of them, and four of them all do some significant damage to the ice. But if you look carefully at where Buggy struck the ice, he literally does no damage to it. There's no crack in the ice, no impact whatsoever. And this is actually a funny little detail they added for the anime, as this moment of impact is not shown in the manga from a close-up perspective. We only actually see the impact explosion from a wide shot. And as tense as this entire situation is, there's still so much comedy. It's so funny. And I absolutely love this. And this moment has been memed to death. Like you'll come across this meme on Twitter and Instagram and Reddit all the time, where you see Buggy not doing anything to the ice here. Bouncing around again to a different tone, one after another, can be disorienting and off-putting, but I don't know, it never seems to weird me out for One Piece. We go from comedic to incredibly uplifting as you see Luffy's pure relief and happiness to see Ace is still alive and he's arrived in time. Then, once again, to sort of heartfelt suspense and epic as the overtaken music starts to play when we see all the big players gather on the wreckage behind Luffy. And then seeing all these people all react to Luffy's arrival can only be described as euphoric, with people who are seeing Luffy for the first time in person to familiar faces across the entire story react to this, like Hancock, Moria, Aokiji, Kizaru, Smoker, Tashigi, and even Django and Full Body. To the best is seeing Helmeppo as well as Kobe fanboying over Luffy's arrival is so satisfying and fun to watch. Garp and Sengoku's exchange is pretty funny, with Sengoku yelling at Garp, "It's your damn family again!" Like, it's pretty funny how Sengoku is just kind of fed up with Garp's family at this point because of how much trouble they've caused him. However, if you think, what we've seen so far has been cool, it's only gonna get even cooler and more epic now that Luffy and his gang have arrived, with Crocodile immediately going after Whitebeard for some grudge he has with him. But Luffy instantly intervenes, covered in water with Gear 2nd active. And seeing this, if Crocodile couldn't beat Luffy back in Arabasta, he realizes immediately he stands no chance against him right now. And especially from our perspective, we know how much stronger Luffy is, especially with Gear 2nd already activated. But that is nothing compared to how fucking compelling Luffy and Whitebeard's first interaction is. There's really no analysis or commentary here on my part. I'm just gonna be fanboying here. And what I'm about to say, is pure fanboying, because this moment was so amazing, and it still is to this day. Watching this moment play out is so engrossing and chills inducing. Whitebeard clearly already knows that there's something special about Luffy from his second-hand knowledge from Shanks as well as Ace talking about him. But he still tries to intimidate Luffy to stay out of this, since he's just going to get himself killed. Which, to be fair, he's pretty spot on. Luffy doesn't stand a chance against most of these people. But Luffy doesn't care. All he knows is that he needs to save Ace, and not for 1 minute doesn't fold under Whitebeard's reputation or intimidation. The best part about this entire interaction is watching everyone else's tense and anxious reaction to seeing all of this unfold, as a no-name rookie like Luffy is not only not backing down from Whitebeard, but in fact actually openly competing with him for the One Piece. And you gotta love Luffy. I wish I had his balls to sort of go up against basically the top person in the world and just basically saying, "I'm going to beat you It's just insane and so cool. Despite this amazing cliffhanger, the next episode 467 has an unbelievable 7.5 minutes of recap before the actual episode starts. Add to that the 2 minutes for the next episode preview at the end. That accounts for like more than 40% of the episode's runtime, and that's just kind of nuts and a little bit unacceptable. Luffy, after his brief interaction with Whitebeard and giving him the intel that Ace's execution is being sped up, he rushes off towards Ace and immediately he has to face off against Kizaru again. But this time he's got more firepower in his corner with Ivankov, Jinbei, and the whole of Whitebeard's support as well. Kind of before moving on, I kind of want to interject a translator's note here. So during the scene where Luffy almost gets blown away by Kizaru's blast, Buggy screams out, "I want to go home!" but gets misheard by his followers that he says, "I want to destroy him and go home," which kind of makes no sense, like why they would make that kind of leap in logic. But that's because in Japanese, the phrase "I want to go home" is said kaeritai, and kaeru is Japanese for return. Now that can be applied to anything, but it's generally understood that if you just say kaeru or kaeritai, depending on the context, usually means that you want to return to your home or wherever you were last. But because kaeru or kaeritai is such a ubiquitous word, which can mean the return of any number of different things, depending on the context and what words you attach to it, it can mean the return of a lot of different things. So the Impel Down followers all mishear kaeritai for kairiuchi ni shitai, which literally translates as probably closest to like, "I want to return fire," but more so, in actuality, it means like he wants to counterattack or turn the tables on Kizaru. And so I will admit, even in Japanese, this one's a bit of a stretch, which is what I think the joke is. It's that these guys are so delusionally loyal that they will jump through an insane amount of mental gymnastics to hear what they want to hear, which Galdino responds, "How positive are you guys?" Now, I will say the manga translation is a little better because they make it so that they misunderstand Buggy's words as, "I want to send him crying home," which is shorter and actually kind of fits with the number of words. And so I think I like that one better. Now, with that translator's note out of the way, continuing to roll it back with sort of the references to Sabori, next it's Kuma. But Ivankov stays behind to fight him as Ivankov seems to know him. But given their mutual relationship to Dragon, as Kuma recognized Luffy as Dragon's son all the way back on Thriller Bark, it's safe to say they must know each other through him and are both in fact part of his revolutionary army, which is a very interesting development. And we'll definitely get more into this here in Marineford, as well as throughout the rest of the story. We'll get more and more pieces of their relationship and how they know each other. But throughout this part, we also get some fun returns of Django, Fullbody, Hina, and Moria all trying to attack Luffy. Now, one thing I don't understand, and I mentioned this in the differences section, is it seems like he's implying that because this is a battlefield, he's able to just keep raising zombies, but it's established that he needs shadows to make zombies, so where is he getting all these additional shadows? Does he just have a stockpile on him? Like, at least from my interpretation, it doesn't seem like he had these all pre-prepared. I don't think this has ever been explained anywhere, so I'd be curious to see what you all think. And I have yet to actually find out how to explain this. And then, of course, we talked about in the differences section how in the manga he actually raises like modified zombies that Hogback made, which makes absolutely no sense. And I think that was actually a good change that they made in the anime to keep it more strictly just Marine soldiers and just reanimating those corpses. Meanwhile, Ace does everything he can to get Luffy to quit coming after him, but of course this is ineffective as nothing's going to stop Luffy. But here's where things get fun, as Sengoku reveals to the entire battlefield, and by extension the world, that Luffy is in fact the biological son of Dragon, to everyone's surprise, in an effort to impress upon his soldiers that it is of vital importance that they eliminate Luffy as well. And one really fun callback that results of this is Smoker finally hearing this and puts it together why Dragon saves Luffy from him back in Logtown. And this was a really fun callback. And speaking of callbacks, Luffy then, in a callback to Enies Lobby when he revealed Gear 3rd, he mentions that it's got the power of a giant, hence the name of each attack being Gomu Gomu no Giant or Gigan. We see it actually is indeed powerful enough to knock out a real giant as he takes down a giant vice admiral. And after seeing this act, it reinvigorates everyone on the battlefield to the point where Whitebeard himself is impressed and tells Marco, "Don't let that one die," to which Marco has no complaints about. And this moment is so freaking awesome. Like, Whitebeard himself has basically recognized Luffy is in fact someone special and worth saving for the future. I mean, this is so freaking cool. Just watching all these interactions and these like big shots reacting to Luffy. Whitebeard clearly knows that his time is coming to an end, and it's time for a new generation to step up. And he probably sees a lot of Luffy, he sees a lot of his old rivals, Roger and Shanks, in this kid, especially with that hat that he recognizes immediately when he first meets him. And he wants to make sure that he survives and grows, carrying on that theme of inherited will throughout the entire story of One Piece. One last thing I want to mention with these episodes is that during that mini flashback where Ace and Luffy share the drink sealing their brotherhood, there is a very foreshadowing detail that I personally completely missed, but many other hawk-eyed people noticed when the chapter containing this scene came out in the manga. It's a lot more apparent, and that fact is the fact that if you look very carefully to the left, there is a tiny shadow as if there's one more Sakazuki or cup. Many people theorize that there could possibly be a third brother out there somewhere, or perhaps one that they had, but they passed away at some point before the beginning of the story, which is why this third brother is never mentioned till now. And yeah, we'll have to wait to confirm this, but I do remember thinking this was an interesting theory, but I didn't really pay much attention to it since I was so engrossed in what was actually happening in the present day. But it's pretty incredible that some people actually noticed this and that Oda actually put this detail in right here at this moment. But yeah, with Luffy now arriving and getting ever closer to Ace, things are getting more and more intense than ever. Things are getting nuts with more, interesting things being revealed and different characters interacting with other characters that we've never seen. And it's going to be so much fun to discuss and talk about the rest of this arc. However, as always with every year, I will be taking the last 2 weeks of the year off and going on break. And yeah, I wish everyone a safe and happy holiday as well as a happy new year. And we'll be back after the new year. If you did enjoy this, send me a like or comment, and if you want to join me on this journey of rewatching One Piece, please consider subscribing. Check out my Instagram and Twitter account at SunnyGo Podcast if you want updates of when I post new episodes and to see my manga collection. And as always, I wanted to thank you for taking the time out to listen to my podcast. And yeah, this has been a really great year for One Piece with all the different things that have been happening in the manga, in the anime, as well as the premiere of the live action. And my audience seems to be growing. So thank you so much for all of your support and, all the kind comments and everything that you've all left for me. I really appreciate it. I know it's still a very small and very niche podcast, but to those of you that listen and support me, I thank you so much. And yeah, I hope you all have a great year, and let's hope for great things to come in the next year. However, for those of you that want to stay around for a few spoiler talks, there will be one for this episode. But yeah, if you're not interested in any of those, stay safe out there, and I hope to see you on the next episode. Bye. All right, so spoiler section. The first thing I of course want to talk about, especially with what's going on with the current Egghead Island arc, is Ivankov and Kuma's friendship. Now, this was a very interesting one, and now looking back on it with the context of what they've both gone through and just, what kind of relationship they've had, this is so heartbreaking. And of course, in a few more episodes, we'll get to see another moment between them where Ivankov obviously talks about how doesn't Kuma recognize him, and it's just so sad because of all of that that's happened between them, and just seeing how how shocked Ivankov is in that he doesn't realize that Kuma's personality has been wiped out, because it's shown in the flashback that during this time Ivankov was already caught in Impel Down, and so he doesn't know any of this had happened to Kuma. So he's completely unaware of Kuma's transformation, as well as his personality wiping experiment by Vegapunk. And so yeah, watching this moment between these two, as well as what happens later on in this arc, is really sad and heartbreaking. The second thing I wanted to talk about is, I remember it's with Squard. So Squard, when I first watched this, I kept wondering why this character kept getting so much screen time and so much like mentioning. Like, he doesn't seem particularly strong, and he's not like one of the main commanders of Whitebeard's crew, and he's not even part of Whitebeard's main crew. He's just a captain in one of his sort of grand fleet. And yeah, I was like, why is this guy getting so much screen time? Because he doesn't even look that cool either. Until you realize Oda was setting him up to betray Whitebeard. And in this episode, you do see how Squard sees somebody and is shocked by them. And we all eventually find out that it's Akainu who comes to him with a deal. But yeah, I guess I just wanted to mention like how caught off guard I was about this. It didn't even occur to me why this character got so much screen time prior to his big sort of twist reveal that he's going to betray Whitebeard. And now the last thing is the foreshadowing of the third Sakazuki Cup, and that being Sabo. And yeah, I mean, granted, this isn't that far in advance of the whole Sabo, Ace, Luffy flashback that's going to take place after this arc. But the fact that, yeah, he remembered to put that in there and tease the fact that there is a third cup there, and so that there's not a continuity error, is pretty remarkable. And what's more remarkable, I'm still pretty, like, I guess not shocked, but impressed by fans who notice these things. Like, I read the manga pretty carefully, but I would have never caught this until it was pointed out to me. And yeah, you can clearly see, especially in the manga, you can almost see the actual cup itself. In the anime, they do a better job of hiding it. You can only see like a tip of the shadow in the anime, but it's just insane to me that people caught this like detail. It's crazy. And yeah, I think that's one of the fun things about One Piece, is just seeing how crazy smart Oda is in terms of like making sure that he sets things up in the most minute of ways, and it makes rereading or rewatching One Piece so rewarding, as well as just reading it the first time through. If you caught something like this and you started to theorize and you got it right, it's pretty rewarding. And so, yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about that aspect of it as well. But yeah, that's pretty much all this spoiler section talk that I wanted to do for this episode. So I will say happy holidays and stay safe out there. See ya.